Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
How lovely to have this silence in the middle of a hustling and bustling period of time. It's now our custom to go around the room and say our names and maybe take an extra moment between names to let yourself experience that calm, quiet in the midst of this season. I'm Len.
Rich.
My name's Michael.
I'm Caddy.
Baruch. My name is Mark.
I'm Jack.
Jose.
I'm Clint.
Peter.
My name is Cass.
Jerry. Dennis. And Amos.
My name's David.
David.
My name is Val.
Arthur.
Lisa. My name is David. My name is Bruein.
My name is Jeff.
Tom.
Richard.
And Hal.
I know that Arthur has returned after a little absence. Did you say you did as well, Dennis? Is there anyone else that returned after an absence? Make sure that you welcome them back at social hour. So our speaker, David Lewis, has been following the Dharma path for over 40 years and has a degree in comparative religious studies. He attended his first retreat in the Tibetan Shambhala tradition at the age of 17 and has been practicing Vipassana meditation since moving to San Francisco 25 years ago. For the past 5 years, he has been practicing intensively. David is a member of the Mission Dharma Sangha, where he teaches an introduction to insight meditation class. He is a longtime member of the Gay Buddhist Fellowship and also leads a weekly sitting group for seniors every Friday morning. David is a graduate of Spirit Rock Meditation Center's Dedicated Practitioners Program and has been on the teaching team for Spirit Rock retreats. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good morning. And it's winter solstice, or we're just past winter solstice. And that's not exactly the theme of my talk, but I just wanted to acknowledge it. And I'm not going to say happy winter solstice because it might not be happy for you. It's a dark time of year. That's what winter solstice is about. The longest nights, the shortest days. And for a lot of people, it's a time of hope because from here on out, the days get longer. We tend to associate, as I talk to people about solstice, we tend to associate darkness with being not as good as light. And I think what the Buddha would encourage us to do is to embrace the darkness as well as the light and realize that they're both part of our lives and they both happen. Here's a poem from Theodor Rutke called In a Dark Time. In a dark time the eye begins to see. I meet my shadow in the deepening shade. I hear my echo in the echoing wood. A lord of nature weeping to a tree. I live between the heron and the wren, beasts of the hill and serpents of the den. What's madness but nobility of soul at odds with circumstance? The day's on fire. I know the purity of pure despair. My shadow pinned against a sweating wall. That place among the rocks, is it a cave or a winding path? The edge is what I have. A steady storm of correspondences, a night flowing with birds, a ragged moon, and in broad day the midnight come again. A man goes far to find out what he is. Death of the self in a long, tearless night, all natural shapes blazing a natural light. Dark, dark my light, and darker my desire. My soul, like some heat-maddened summer fly, keeps buzzing at the sill. Which eye is I? A fallen man, I climb out of my fear. The mind enters itself, and God the mind, and one is one, free in the tearing wind. So, darkness and light, there's both in that poem. One of the things about solstice is it's a time of transition. It's that time of year when for the past 6 months it's been getting darker and darker and darker, and we know for the next 6 months it's going to get lighter. So from a Buddhist perspective, that's change, that's impermanence. And I suspect, I haven't been able to find any reference to the Buddha talking about solstice. I suspect that Buddha would say it's no big deal. It gets darker and darker, and then it gets lighter, and then it's going to get darker again. Just like it does every day, only on a seasonal level. So for some people, it's, as I mentioned, it's a time of hope. It's people that are looking forward to light, looking forward to change, looking forward to the new things. But that's a problematic concept in Buddhism also, hope. Because hope's wanting things to be other than they are. Mark Coleman, who's a local Buddhist teacher, says of solstice, solstice asks how we stand open-hearted in the face of darkest night. Solstice asks how we stand open-hearted in the face of darkest night. So here's what T.S. Eliot has to say about that, about hope. This is from the Four Quartets. I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope. For hope would be hope for the wrong thing. Wait without love, for love would be love for the wrong thing. There is yet faith, but the faith and the love and the hope are all in the waiting. Wait without thought, for you are not ready for thought. So darkness shall be light, and the stillness the dancing. When I was invited to speak today, a few weeks ago, I thought, well, I'll put together a talk about winter solstice and what it means. And I just had the hardest time with that, and finally gave up because I realized, upon asking what would the Buddha do, the Buddha wouldn't talk about meaning. The Buddha rejected metaphysical concepts and tended to avoid talking about what the meaning is of events or time. Because whenever we start talking about meaning, we get away from the moment. We get away from what's happening right here in the moment. So even a week ago, I wasn't too sure what I was going to talk about. And then I came to GBF and heard Dale Borglum's excellent talk last week. And the very last thing that Dale said in his talk inspired me and kind of gave me my idea for what I was going to do today. Dale said, spiritual practice is about letting go of that which dies, the body, the self, thoughts. It's about letting go of that which dies and getting in touch with that which doesn't die, which is pure awareness. Sometimes nirvana is called the deathless. But the deathless is also our natural mind, our pure awareness, which doesn't die. It's not conditioned. Another way of talking about the deathless in Buddhism is to talk about that which is not conditioned. Because everything else, pretty much everything in our experience is conditioned. Our thoughts are conditioned by our background. Our body is conditioned. So I wanted to not even talk so much about the natural mind or pure awareness. But I wanted to do a practice around it. I didn't want to get talking about meaning too much. And I wanted to see if I could keep us in the moment and maybe give us a little bit further break from thoughts. So I'm going to do something I've never done here before. I'm going to do a guided meditation. And it's one of my favorites. It's called the sky meditation, or sometimes referred to as the big mind meditation. And it's borrowed from the Tibetan tradition, adapted by Joseph Goldstein, who was a teacher of my teacher, and he passed it on down to my teacher, and who then in turn passed it on to me. So for the next, probably at least half of my time here, we're going to do a guided meditation. So I encourage you to get really comfortable in your chairs. You don't have to sit in proper meditation position. But it's nice to be comfortable. And if anybody wants to lay down, feel free. So just find yourself sitting comfortably with gentle stillness. And let your mind rest in the natural peace and ease that is its natural peace and ease. Experience your mind to be like an empty sky without any limits. Your mind is pure awareness. And we'll start this meditation by bringing our awareness to any sounds that come and go. Sounds in the room, creaking chairs, sound of my voice, the sound of silence. With complete receptivity, allowing all sounds, loud and soft, arise and pass, without naming them, without judging them, simply allowing them to pass into your awareness and back out again. The mind is like space. Sounds enter that space and pass away. Make no effort to hear the sound. Let listening happen all by itself. Just hearing. In that clear and open space of mind, become aware of physical sensations. Physical sensations are just like points of feeling or stars in the evening sky, flickering in the open space of mind. There is no head, no shoulders, no back, no arms, only points of feeling, flickering like stars in the night sky, appearing and disappearing in the vast openness of the mind. Sounds, sensations. There is no inside or outside, only these appearances arising and passing away in the clear, open spaciousness of mind. Keep the mind perfectly still, allowing sounds and sensations to appear and disappear in the stillness. The mind's nature is motionless. It is clear, empty, spacious. Sounds come and go. Sensations arise and pass through the luminous spaciousness of mind. Be aware of any thoughts or images that arise, like clouds passing through a vast, empty sky, passing through the natural transparency of the mind, having no roots, no home, empty, rising, and vanishing within the natural stillness of mind. Keeping the mind soft and steady, perfectly still. No reaching out or pushing away any experience. Allowing sounds, sensations, thoughts, and images to arise and pass by themselves in that clear, empty spaciousness of mind. Look within the nature of mind. The mind is clear, boundless, like empty space. Dark like empty space, and yet luminous. Look directly at the nature of mind. It has no height, no depth, no limits. There is only pure awareness. Look within your own mind. It is clear, empty, luminous, containing all experience, but not limited to it. Look within the nature of mind. There is no solid body, no head, no back, no arms, no legs, only points of feeling arising and passing away, like stars in the night sky. No inside, no outside, just an open, spacious mind. Keep perfectly still. Not the slightest movement toward or away from any experience. Be the stillness. Look directly at the unmoving nature of mind. It is invisible, like space, containing all experience, but not limited by it. Rest in the natural openness of this luminous mind. Look within the nature of mind, soft, steady, welcoming all experience. Rest in the natural refuge of the spacious mind. Be the stillness. And finally, pay attention to the nature of awareness itself. Notice how the open space of awareness is naturally clear, transparent, timeless, and without conflict, allowing all things, but not limited by any of them. Buddha said, "O nobly born, remember the pure, open sky of your own true nature. Return to it. Trust it. It is home." So in your own time, you can open your eyes. Come back into the room, if you ever left. In Buddha's time, Buddha, of course, lived in India, southern hemisphere. So winter solstice was perhaps not as impactful where the Buddha lived as it was in northern Europe. In northern Europe, North America, we have about 3 or 4 months of darkness. And in India, the equivalent of that, I think, was the monsoon season. And that's a very important event in the Buddhist world, especially with the monastics. Because when the monsoons hit, the monastics, who were wandering mendicants, they traveled, they walked most of the time, could not travel. You had to settle down. People couldn't plant their crops. They couldn't harvest, lay people. And so everybody pretty much moved inside for the monsoons. So over the centuries, the monsoon season, which is referred to in Buddhism as Vasa, the time of year is Vasa, became a retreat time, both for lay people and for monastics. It's the time you went within. Basically, there wasn't anything else you could do but retreat. And it's still practiced by the monastic communities. Monks and nuns go on 3-month retreat during Vasa, even in the West. So I've always thought that wintertime ought to be our Vasa. And indeed, if you read about the different solstice traditions, it's this time of year in Northern Europe when we were an agricultural culture, more so than now. People couldn't plant their crops, they couldn't harvest. There wasn't a whole lot they could do. You were kind of trapped inside for a few months. So again, the same thing as with Vasa, with the monsoons, it's a time to go inward. And it was a frightening time for some people. I was reading about solstice at this time of years. Not everybody knew they were going to make it through the winter. Depended on how the crops were last year, how much you have in store. One of the traditions about this being a feast season, which Christmas is part of that, was that people often had to kill their animals because they didn't have enough food to get them through the winter, or they anticipated they wouldn't have enough food, and the animals themselves became food. So it was an uncertain time for people in those agricultural societies. So I invite you to open to this kind of uncertainty. And open also to what we experienced, hopefully, in the meditation, that there can be light, and there can be luminous mind, even in the darkness. Solstice is an invitation to practice mindfulness, to practice meditation, to cultivate silence rather than noise, to cultivate stillness rather than activity or distraction, to cultivate spaciousness, not stuff, spaciousness of mind, like I was talking about in the meditation. It's a beautiful opportunity to go within. And I don't know if, maybe we'll talk about this a little later, but I don't know if any of you have noticed an inclination to do that anyway. I think it's natural. It's like animals, many animals have an inclination to hibernate this time of year. I notice in my own experience, I'm sleeping longer. I go to bed earlier. That's my own kind of hibernation. But it's also a powerful time to practice, to encourage that silence rather than to resist it. I have another poem for you. This is by Pablo Neruda. It's called Keeping Quiet. And now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is all about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. So it'd be kind of cool if I just walked out on that. But I won't. Those are some thoughts of mine and various poets on this time of year. And some quiet time. And what I'd like to do now is hear your thoughts, either about anything that I've said or read, or how you're interpreting or dealing with or enjoying this time of year, this season.
I'm interested in what you said towards the beginning about hope. You know, I've also heard give up all hope of fruition, but I know when we're experiencing a lot of aversion, whether it's a loss of some kind, health, finances, job, relationship, we often go to a place of seeking internal relief that either it's going to change and probably change for the better, to get out of the sense of discomfort. What were you saying about hope? Do you say hope is not helpful in terms of equanimity, or I mean, I understand it takes you out of the present, but it also seems to be useful in terms of providing some kind of relief.
Well, hope is fundamentally wishing for things to be other than they are. And in Buddhist practice, we try to be with whatever's going on, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, knowing that it's going to change. It doesn't mean that we don't plan for our own happiness and look for a better job when we're unhappy in our job, or better life circumstances, or try to improve ourselves. It doesn't mean that we don't take steps to improve our lot. But we can spend a lot of time wishing for things to be other than they are and completely missing out on the present moment. And so that's what I was trying to indicate there, is that when we spend a lot of time in hope and wishing things to be other than they are, we're missing out on whatever's happening in the present moment, which might be quite okay. Sometimes if we think a lot about the circumstances of our lives, we think about all the problems, everything that's going wrong. I could have a better relationship, I could be making more money, I could live in a nicer house, and not appreciating what's right in our lives, what's working out. So it's useful to do that. Useful also to be in the moment. So there's a difference between intention and hope. And let me read you what Philip Moffat has to say about intention. Because I'm suggesting that we set an intention for practice, for being more in the moment, and whatever practices encourage that. Philip Moffat says, setting intention, at least according to Buddhist teachings, is quite different than goal making. It is not oriented towards future outcome. Instead, it is a path or practice that is focused on how you are being in the present moment. Your attention is in the ever-present now, in the constantly changing flow of life. You set your intentions based on understanding what matters most to you and make a commitment to align your worldly actions with your inner values. So we can set intentions about how we want to be based on our values, and that can affect our worldly actions. And it's maybe even somewhat more of a proactive stance than simply hoping that things be different. Is that helpful at all? Jeff?
Thanks for the great meditation. I was relating to the Neruda poem about doing, and Dale Borgman's talk last week about space and time and their interrelationship. And that often, that when I think the sense of being busy doing things feels like there's no time, there's not enough time. And the cultivation of the not doing that's the space, increasing the space.
Yeah.
Really, that's very lovely.
Yeah, thank you. We're doers, aren't we?
Yeah.
Especially in this culture, we're doers. That's what we were trained to do. The way we were trained to be in the world, we're doers, but more than beers. So that's one of the ways that Dharma practice goes against the stream. It's fairly radical what we do here. Coming into this room and being quiet for half an hour, for an hour, that's a fairly radical thing. And cultivating silence, stillness, spaciousness is positively un-American.
I heard a two-line poem yesterday that I think relates well to the solstice. I yearn for the light, for it shows me the way. But I embrace the darkness, for it shows me the stars.
Perfect. That's beautiful. Somebody that's in one of my meditation groups gave me her favorite solstice line a week ago, which was, even bread rises only in the dark. Or it takes dark to rise bread. Yes?
The word mindfulness came to me as you were talking about intention around in response to the concept of hope and values and being in the present moment and the practice itself. Thinking about Thich and the miracle of mindfulness.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd really encourage everybody to think about what your practice is. And that can mean a lot of things, your spiritual practice. It could be sitting in meditation every day, whether it's for 15 minutes or 50 minutes, or and maybe if you sit once a day, you want to give it twice a day a try. During these dark months. Or try a different practice. I mean, it's one of the wonderful things about the different traditions of Buddhism is that there's all these incredibly wonderful practices that give us variety in our lives. If you've never done metta practice before, loving kindness practice, that's a beautiful thing to try. And just see whether it works for you or not. Give it a try. Another way of trying a different kind of practice is to look at the precepts, how you are in the world, how you behave, right speech, right sexuality. There's all different kinds of practices in the different traditions, and we've heard a lot about them from different speakers. And if we have, I think we might have a small group discussion next week. That'd be a good topic. Whoever's running small group discussion next week is, what our intentions are, and not our resolutions, intentions, like Philip Moffat defined. What our intentions are for our practice, and what might be fun without it being a burdensome thing. What?
Can you go over again? What you just said just sparked a question in me. Intention and resolution seem almost synonymous to me, and I wonder if you could just go again about the difference between the two.
Let me read that quote. Philip Moffat, who's another local Dharma teacher, puts it better than I possibly could. Setting intention, at least according to Buddhist teachings, is quite different than goal making. It is not oriented towards future outcome. Instead, it is a path or practice that is focused on how you are being in the present moment. Your attention is on the ever-present now in the constantly changing flow of life. You set your intentions based on understanding what matters most to you and make a commitment to align your worldly actions with your inner values. So you might set an intention, I might set an intention for having more loving kindness in my life. And that doesn't necessarily mean, okay, I want to make myself more loving and more open and more friendly in the future. That's just what I'm going to try to do in this moment to the best of my ability. And the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment, because the future is only, after all, this moment in the future. There is no past, there is no future, there's only this moment, followed by this moment, followed by this moment, followed by this moment. So, does that make sense?
Yes, it does, quite a bit actually. Thank you.
It's a beautiful thing, I think.
It is a beautiful thing. Thank you, David.
I noticed that the sound of the bells really helped with the sense of spaciousness for me. If I was caught up in a thought, as soon as the bell sounded, there was a kind of dissipation of that. I think for a lot of people, there's a sort of biochemical dimension to darkness, and people struggle with seasonal depression and so forth. And so I think there's a natural tension between staying spacious and, because depression is sort of a contraction around an identity and a bunch of thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
So for me, it just seemed like the bells could be a really, sound can be a really good way to let go of thought.
Works for me. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, it really is. And I experienced that myself this time of year. So I get what I call sticky. Sticky is when thoughts or memories or regrets come up and they're not so easy to let go of. They kind of stick. The opposite of that is what my teacher calls Teflon mind, where that stuff just slides right off. But yeah, I get a little sticky this time of year. I kind of notice that and recognize it as a part of the season. It's part of my experience. But I love that quote of Mark Coleman's. Solstice asks us to stand open-hearted in the face of the darkest night. So whatever's up, whatever comes up for us, even the sad stuff, we'll just be open-hearted with that. And the response is compassion for ourselves. Like, oh, that's up for me right now. We can offer ourselves a little compassion this time of year. Yes?
One of the themes that oftentimes arises in this particular season is this concept of joy and happiness. And so I'm reminded that between the third and fourth Noble Truth, there is the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is not about, directly seeking joy or happiness. It seems that the Eightfold Path is really inviting me to evaluate my ethics and my values, which is what you were saying earlier, and setting intentions for my ethics, setting intentions for my values, rather than setting intentions for the things that I'm going to do this or do that to derive joy, directly derive joy, happiness, or titillation, whatever it might be. But in fact, what the practice is inviting me to do, look very deeply at, is my ethics, and the values.
Beautiful.
Because that's the Four Noble Truths are only telling you one thing, that happiness is coming out of those values. It's coming out of the ethics, it's coming out of working the Eightfold Path. So my mindfulness needs to be towards the Eightfold Path, towards the ethics, and not towards what's going to bring me directly, extract joy out of a particular situation, circumstance.
Well, and in Buddhism, equanimity is actually a higher value than happiness. Recognizing that happiness is a beautiful thing. Happiness and joy is a beautiful thing, but it comes and goes. It's temporary, just like sadness and despair come and go. Nothing's permanent. So if we can hold both happiness and unhappiness with some equanimity, that's a beautiful thing.
I think we're going to have to end on that beautiful note that you just ended with. The sound. We have a few minutes to have announcements, and before the host speaks, I will say that in terms of dana, for the helping the sangha, GBF asks for a weekly donation of $10 or more to meet our monthly expenses.
Sorry, turn on those things.
Carol the bells. This includes our rent, the speaker honorarium, newsletter production and mailing costs, and the Larkin Street Youth Center dinner. If you wish to see an itemized breakdown of our monthly expenses, they are listed on a card that can be viewed on the table with other GBF literature. So the host today will be coming around with the Dana Bowl, and we appreciate your continued support that sustains this wonderful sangha. Is there a host today?
That would be me. I will be coming around with the Dana. But please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the sangha. There are refreshments, there's hot water for tea, and other munchies. If you do have tea, please wash your cup with hot soap and water. There's a sign-up list if anybody wants to get on the email or regular mail list. Some people gather at the front door around 12:30 to go to lunch together. Everybody is welcome to join. And I think that's it.
Any other announcements for today, Jasmine?
Dale Borkman asked me to announce more information about what he mentioned last week on the Living Diet Project. He's doing these 1 and I think maybe 2 day workshops in Berkeley, Santa Rosa, Marin, San Francisco, and from which you can get continuing education credits. It's a workshop for caregivers, therapists, and anyone wanting to deeply explore healing. And I'll put this flyer out of the
I want to announce that there's going to be a 6-week class for the LGBTQ community at the Mindfulness Care Center in January. Starts January 10th, and it's a 6-week class. It's specifically for people who want to come and talk about their practice in a way of deepening practice, and I'll be teaching it with 2 other teachers. So you're all welcome to come, or if you know people that might be interested, it's offered on a Donna basis, so there's no charge for the class. And I'll leave a couple of flyers out.
What day of the week is that?
Yeah.
It's Friday. Friday, 6
p.m.
Yeah, 6 p.m. to 8:30. Still early enough to go out afterwards.
That's for the announcement. Okay, we should gather around this. I will mention that next week is true that it's open discussion, so be here for hearing from each other next week. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow, and may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.